doing, sir?
I'm doing great, sir. How are you?
Doing great out there on the floor doing your
sir.
forms. You know, you've been with me. You're one of my early students. I remember
Yes, sir.
when we first opened, maybe a few months after you came, and we actually saw you before that at the
Yes,
festival,
sir.
right?
Yes, sir. It was either a festival or a market day.
I think it was Kyle Market Days.
Yes, sir.
I just think we remember holding the board for you to break.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, you were on our pre-registration list. You came
Yes,
in,
sir.
and I remember those first maybe 3 or 4 months, it's just me and you basically on the mat,
Yes, sir.
going up and down the floor, working paddles.
Yes, sir.
We've come a
Those are
long
the
way
Good old
since
days, sir.
then.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
You know, you're a red belt now,
Yes,
working
sir.
your way to that black belt.
Yes, sir.
Can you describe for, people who are new to the school, who don't know who you are?
I've always been
what got you
kind of
interested in
interested in
martial arts
martial
in the
arts.
first place?
But it really started back, way back when I used to watch Power Rangers.
Yeah.
And I always like to see all the choreography, the movements, not just the punches and the kicks, not just with the bad guys losing, but what the bad guys were doing along with everything else. And it wasn't around until maybe high school year, maybe sophomore, late freshman year, I got into Kung Fu for a little while until I broke my arm, and then my parents could not afford it anymore, so I was like, oh man, I was like this close to getting a black belt there, and I was like, I just got to start that process all over again.
Yeah.
So
Well, you've definitely come a long way. I studied Kung Fu too, and I think I can see a little bit of your Kung Fu form in your stance and your way you block and punch, but I think you've just grown a lot as a martial artist in general. Your flexibility, your power, the coordination, stamina, balance, all these things is definitely markedly better than when you first came in.
yes, sir.
And that's so interesting. So when you were watching the Power Rangers, you weren't just watching the Power Rangers, you were watching the bad guys attack the Power Rangers and trying to kind of break down what they were doing.
Yes, sir. I mean, not just what their evil scheme was, but how, what they were, just mainly the choreography with it.
Yeah.
So it's just a little tiny bit of choreography. And then I got into Jackie Chan films and Kung Fu, watched Legend of the Drunken Master, Rush Hour, and I think Project A.
I've never seen that.
Those were my first 3 movies for Jackie Chan.
Cool. Well, if you like, watching the bad guy, you probably would like Cobra Kai. I mean, we would watch it as a school. Have you started to watch it now? It's on Netflix?
I just got acquired a username and password.
For Netflix?
For Netflix, yes, sir.
Nice.
It's one of my good friends I know back in the day.
That's awesome.
And he's letting me use his account, so...
I hear it's #1 on Netflix right now.
Wow.
Yeah. That's surprising because it came out a long time ago.
Yes, sir, on YouTube.
Yeah.
That is kind of funny. But I've been trying to catch up on another series that I left off on, Lucifer, which is about the devil who takes a break from running hell and runs to Los Angeles and becomes a assistant detective. It's really, really interesting watching it.
Yeah. I saw, I think, the first episode of that, and I do that kind of with a lot of shows. I'll flip around and try to see something that piques my interest. But I'll have to go back and watch it now that I know it's good. Okay, so you got into the martial arts when you were younger. You did a little Kung Fu. It's kind of circled back when we opened our school and come a long way. What are some of the things that really interest you about the martial arts here at the school? We do a lot of things. Not just kicking and punching, forms, sparring, weapons, demonstration, grappling. I mean, there's a lot of things to explore. Meditation as well.
Yes,
what are some of your favorite aspects?
I really liked the weapons when we had it, and the demonstration team when we had it, but I've come to boil down more upon the philosophy of not just the martial arts, but how we kick, how we punch, why we do this, why we do that.
Yeah. I think, so are you talking more about the sort of principles
Yes, sir.
of fighting, or more of like the philosophical way of life? Both?
A little bit of both, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think they're both very interesting. Of course, I want all my students to be enamored with the philosophical way of being a good person and being a warrior and all that kind of stuff. Because, I want my students to go out and do good things. But I also really like trying to solve the puzzle of self-defense and figure out the human biomechanics behind all of this.
Yes, sir.
And it's really interesting is there's a lot of different ways to solve the same problem.
Yes, sir. Like I was watching, I don't know what show it was, and they were getting bullied, and I was like, okay, so they get pushed, and I was like, first off, you're not gonna just not get knocked down when you get pushed, but it's like you take your stance and then maybe go at them, or I'll just think of different ways to okay, what's a good way to defend it? And sometimes I'll use my mom, and she's like, no, don't use me. or she'll get creative in the process while I'm trying to demonstrate. So it's all this this yin-yang of okay, you're changing it up what I'm thinking.
I'll tell you what, Mr. McDaniel, I think this is a sign that you have ascended to be a real lifelong martial artist, because I talk about this a lot with all my higher ranked students. There's a point where you just start thinking about every scenario possible.
Yes,
if I'm sitting here at Qdoba, I should be facing the door, and what if someone attacks me with a knife or a gun or comes up behind me in this scenario? You just start running through a million scenarios in your mind. And
yes, sir.
That's a sign that you've really committed to the path. So I think that's a good sign.
Thank you, sir.
Well, we're running low on time. Is there anything that you want people to know about you and your journey here at the school?
I am an anime nerd.
Nice.
More than likely, if there's an anime I haven't watched, it's kind of on the queue. I go to conventions a lot, and I do a lot of cosplay as well.
Yeah.
So, if you're interested in doing conventions or want to get into the convention scene, I am definitely a good source.
You like Pokemon too, right?
Yes, sir. I have a
Pokemon
tattoo of a Pokemon on my leg. If you ever see me stretching out and the legs happen to...
Is it like Bulbasaur? Or
no, sir. It is a Vaporeon and a Trubbish.
Okay, that's way above my
basically represents my favorite Pokemon and my best friend's Pokemon. Because way back in the day, he got a tattoo of his guitar and my guitar on his leg. So it's kind of to show appreciation of blood brother type deal.
Yeah. Well, I remember when you first came in and you were telling me you're really into anime, and I said, I've watched a couple Ninja Scroll and Princess Mononoke. They're kind of the basics that everyone starts out with.
The basic Studio Ghibli movies, or normally it's Inuyasha, Naruto, and Bleach back in the early 2000s, 90s. But it's the scene has changed a little bit, but there's a lot of great animes out there.
What I was gonna say
yes,
is,
sir.
I was oh, I've seen a couple, and then you gave me a couple of animes, and they were so dense.
Yes.
What was that one you gave me that was about World War II, and it was
Hitalia.
Hitalia.
Yes,
oh
sir.
My gosh, I barely got through that one. But it was good.
It was so funny.
It's very literary, I would
yes.
say. It's the kind of thing that's got a lot of depth, and
yes,
it's just hard to follow sometimes.
Yeah, if you're like me and you can only watch anime with subs, the original ways, you read the subtitles, you have to pause, rewind, read it again, and maybe read it a third time, and just continue on. It's okay, I don't get it, that went over my head, I'll maybe get it the next time I watch this anime, because it is definitely one of those cult classic animes, for sure.
Well, Michael, we could keep talking. I really have a lot of things that we could talk about in the martial arts, and I'm excited to see you continue with your journey. I think we're not too far off from that black belt, and I'm excited to see you get there. So until next time, let's keep training hard.
Absolutely, sir.